Last year, I cheated on my ex-girlfriend of 8 years, Annie, with a colleague, Jess, who I now have a 3-week-old son with. I have no excuse. It cost me my job and the majority of my friendships, along with the love of a good woman. I deserved it all, and I've never expected any sympathy for my actions. Annie delivered my stuff to my parents' house before I even knew she knew about the cheating. She didn't even confront me. She just cut me out of her life without a word. I messaged everyone we knew, begging them to ask her to talk to me, and I sent hundreds of messages, telling her how much I regretted everything and wanted her back. I never got a response. Jess saw the messages, and it obviously caused issues between us in the beginning, but she fell pregnant quickly, so we moved past it for the sake of our family together, which we both wanted. I'm 100% committed to the relationship, and haven't even looked at another woman since things settled down. The final stretch of Jess's pregnancy, about a month ago, I saw Annie in a shop for the first time since the breakup. She was pretty cold towards me, but said that a few months ago, she found a keychain my granddad had got me when I was very young. It's not valuable, but she knows it means a lot to me, and she said I could come collect it the following Saturday morning. I explained that was 6 days after Jess was due to give birth, so I'd probably need to be home, but she just said I could either get it on Saturday or it was going in the bin. So I agreed a time to go over. My son was born a few days late, but he's perfectly healthy and wonderful. So he was less than 24 hours old on the Saturday I needed to collect the keychain. I planned to pop in on the way to the hospital, but when I got to my old house, Annie invited me in to talk about how things ended between us. I thought we had a good conversation and that both of us walked away with closure. She let me apologize for the way I treated her, wished me the best with my new family, and hugged me as I left. I admit I held on tightly for the hug, but it was purely because of the relief, not lingering feelings. I spent less than an hour at her house, then headed to the hospital. I didn't tell Jess about any of this because I know she still feels insecure about Annie, and I didn't want to add fuel to that. When I arrived at the hospital after seeing Annie, Jess had revoked my access, and the ward manager wouldn't tell me why. I ended up being removed by a security guard because I was denied seeing my son for the second time ever and didn't respond well to being blindsided. I tried calling Jess and her mom over and over, and the only response I got was a screen recording of a message from Annie. It was doorbell footage of me walking through the door at 9:30, then back out just after 10:15, and the hug is only partly caught, so it does look like we could have been kissing. The message Annie sent with it said, "Did he even shower and change his clothes between screwing me and holding his son? Congratulations on being stuck with him for the next 18 years. I hope it's everything you dreamed of." No one believes this is a setup at all. It's something I would never have expected from Annie, and no one else would either. So they're completely rejecting the idea that this is a lie. I sent her a message asking why she did this, assuming I'd still be blocked. Her response was that she wasn't going to let me play innocent, and that I may have deleted all of our messages over the past few months, but she hasn't. Obviously, there are no messages, but she blocked me again straight after, so I have nothing at all to exonerate myself with. She waited in silence for almost a year, then took the most cruel and vindictive revenge she possibly could. I've met my son once, minutes after he was born, and now Jess is refusing any contact with me and won't let me see him. Court will take months, and my heart hurts every minute of every day. I know what I did to Annie was horrible, but I don't deserve this. I have no one to talk to about it because not even my own mother believes me. Her only question was why I ruined my life with a baby when Annie was willing to reconcile, and that's about the most supportive thing she said to me since I was dumped. The few friends who stuck with me are assuming the worst too, and it's killing me that not a single person I know sees this for what it is. Everything is ruined. How did you not see this coming? I knew where this was going the moment she invited you in. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. The fact that you withheld the information because of what you perceived as her insecurities was really your insecurities with a painful truth you kept from your wife. Had you been honest about why you were going in the first place and had someone go with you, she may have been mad, but she'd have no reason to be insecure about Annie. You walked into a trap of your own creation. Sorry, honesty is the best policy. I honestly don't feel bad for you. You cheated on your ex of 8 years. Lo and behold, that woman was a vindictive person. You created your own reputation and refused to let your pregnant partner know what your plans were. You could have told her, "Hey, I bumped into Annie, and she has my granddad's keychain. I'd like for her to leave it on the doorstep and I go pick it up and leave. Shouldn't be more than a minute. You dove headfirst into the Black Widow's web. So, for background, my sister Laura and I were raised by our mom, without a dad, for the first 5-ish years of my life. It was just the three of us until my mom met my stepdad. They got married and had our little sister, Carrie, not long after. My stepdad is an awesome guy. Before he came along, Laura, Mom, and I lived in a tiny apartment with nothing much but secondhand items and each other. But we were happy because we had a roof over our head and food on the table. My stepdad has an excellent job, so once they married and had Carrie, we moved into a nice big house, a mansion compared to our apartment, and started getting nice gifts at Christmas time and birthdays. This is what Carrie grew up with, and whereas we grew up with a lot of it too, I don't think it affected us as bad because we remember what it's like to be frugal and to not have much. My mom to this day is still very frugal, and we love to go thrifting or making our own items like we used to. Anyways, so Laura and I are very separate from Carrie in that regard. Carrie has always been spoiled, but not in a throw a tantrum and ask daddy for a new car way. But she'll ask for a $500 birthday cake and get it. Buy name brand things only, and if she can't have something for whatever reason, she'll pout for 3 days and be moody. So, surprise, surprise, she still lives with mom and dad and doesn't have a job of her own, and they seem to be fine with it, but whatever. Anyways, Laura's boyfriend of 6 years proposed last year, and we were all thrilled. He's a great guy, and we all love him. Back when she first got engaged, she gave me, her friend Charlotte, and Carrie a box of beautiful earrings that said, "Will you be a bridesmaid?" And mine said, "Maid of Honor." We were all giddy and started coming up with ideas and discussing colors and cakes and all that fun stuff. But they decided to wait a year to save and to figure out what they wanted. Well, 4 months ago, Laura announced she was pregnant, and as a family, we were all excited. All except Carrie, who remained quiet and didn't say much about it. Laura then explained that her and Alan decided they want to have a wedding in 2 months, with about 30 to 40 people, so that they can really celebrate before the baby. Stepdad offered them $10,000 so they could have their dream wedding, but due to the circumstances, they asked if they could use most of that money on a house they were looking at instead, and he agreed. So Charlotte, Laura, Mom, and I have been frantically planning things, and it's been a lot of fun, except for the fact that Carrie hasn't said much about it from the start, and whenever we start wedding planning, she either goes on her phone or will not pay much attention. Finally, Laura had a talk and asked her for more input and to participate more, and Carrie agreed. When we were on our way to the dollar store to pick up some wedding decorations, Carrie scoffed and said, "Dollar store decorations? That's so tacky." But we ignored her and did our thing. When we asked if she would help us to make handmade invitations, she complained again and said it'll look like a bunch of preschoolers made it and just stomped away. Finally, just recently, we were all dress shopping, and Laura told us we can pick whatever dress we want, as long as it's blue, because she wants to keep it simple, and we would be paying for it ourselves. So Mom, Charlotte, and I went into H&M and found beautiful blue summer maxi dresses. Different styles. Mom had lace, mine is floral cotton, and Laura thought they were perfect. Except Carrie, of course, and she wanted to buy a $2,000 bridesmaid's designer gown she found online. My mom told her that was ridiculous. Laura's gown didn't even cost that much. So Carrie, of course, pouted and whined, so Mom gave in, and we all went to this fancy bridal shop. Carrie right away found a pink blush gown that she had to wear, but it was $1,000. Mom said a firm no. Plus, it's not even blue like the other bridesmaids. My sister then said blue was the stupidest color for a bridesmaid's dress because we don't even live near the ocean. Anyways, we all left and she had her little pout, and Mom lectured her and told her this is a frugal wedding. It's in our backyard, barbecue, with only 30 to 40 people. And so she doesn't need a $2,000 designer wedding dress of any kind. Fast forward to a few days later, and Carrie says she's found a dress to wear that she already had in her closet. Plus, it was blue. So we thought terrific. But when we went over to Mom and Dad's, Carrie strutted out in her old prom dress from high school, which is basically a puffy ball gown bedazzled with jewels. And as anyone does after high school, she grew out of it, so her boobs were spilling out and it overall was not flattering. On top of all that, she was wearing a tiara full of sparkling jewels that she claimed she bought just for the wedding. Mom and Laura were silent, and finally I felt I had enough, so I snapped and told her she couldn't possibly be serious. Wearing a dress fancier than the bride is one thing, having your boobs spill out is another. But also, wearing a crown on top of that? Who does she think she is? Carrie crossed her arms and said, "I'm the maid of honor. Of course I'm going to wear a crown." This is when we all get silent until Laura speaks up and says, "Maid of honor? I made Amy maid of honor. You and Charlotte are the bridesmaids." Well, this triggered Carrie, and she began screaming. "What do you mean I'm not the maid of honor? You told me I was." "When?" "When you gave us those presents. I got earrings because I'm maid of honor." Now, I don't know if for this past year Carrie really truly thought she was maid of honor and got the title bridesmaid mixed up, or if she was in denial or just simply didn't pay any attention to detail, because I've been maid of honor this entire time, and she hasn't said anything about it until then. But this caused her to have the worst meltdown I think I've ever witnessed in my life. I truly thought people only acted like this in movies or storybooks. But this has been the worst meltdown ever in our family. Carrie began screaming, crying. She ripped off her gown and stomped around until Dad came down to see what all the fuss was about. Through her bubbling, she told Laura her wedding was all wrong. She said she should be using that $10K for a nice wedding instead of that ugly brick house her and Alan wanted, because that's what the money was meant for. She also said it was the stupidest idea ever that my sister would want to get married while pregnant, because you look like a fat swan in your wedding dress. And again, she rambled onto something about how blue is a dumb color because we don't even live near an ocean. I think at this point, she's just pulling stuff out of her butt. Dad tried to calm her down, and she finally screams that if she can't be maid of honor, then no one can, and she won't go to the wedding. At this point, Laura is a mess and is crying her heart out, and I'm ready to smack that little witch so hard that the crown stays off her head permanently. But before I can say anything, Laura says, "Fine, you can be maid of honor, you win." And just like that, Carrie stopped crying, and she gave a small smile before going up to her room. Mom and Dad start arguing, Dad saying there's nothing you can do to control a 20-year-old's behavior, and Laura had went to the next room to call Alan about potentially canceling the wedding. I'm so angry that I end up storming into Carrie's room to see that she's on her laptop ordering that stupid pink $2,000 dress. I was so dumbfounded at the nerve of her that I couldn't even face her. I left and didn't say a word. Downstairs, Laura is crying to her fiancé, and the parents are yelling all the while Carrie is happily in her room buying stupid crap because she got her way. I don't think I've ever been this angry. I wish Laura had more of a backbone. I would have told Carrie to not bother coming if she was going to act like that. I don't even know what to do now. I'm also hurt that Laura gave the title to her just like that because she screamed for it. I don't know what to say or do to anyone. What should I do? Dad saying there's nothing you can do to control a 20-year-old's behavior. No. He and your mother need to take some responsibility over Carrie's behavior. A lifetime of being spoiled and getting whatever she wants has made her think that at 20 years old, it's okay to be selfish and have tantrums like that. Your mother should have taught her how to be frugal like you were once, and work hard and appreciate what you have. I would say they should make her get a job and buy her own $1,000 dresses, but I imagine that would just result in another tantrum. Until then, your parents should be taking away credit cards, getting new cards with new numbers if they have to, and locking her out of accounts. If she's gonna act like a child, then she should get parental locks. You probably weren't looking for advice on Carrie, but I felt like it needed to be said. As for Laura, you just need to be there for her. Planning a wedding and pregnant and dealing with those things during a pandemic can't be easy. And then her sister continuously judges her for her choices and has uncontrollable meltdown. That's a lot. She just needs to be reminded that it's about her and her fiancé, and she shouldn't have to cater to anyone, especially a 20-year-old brat. She may want to make the family happy, but she shouldn't be tense or feel regret on the actual day because Carrie forced herself into a position that ruined her plans. Someone is going to have to talk to Carrie. Explain to her she's the bridesmaid and that her behavior has been rude and hurtful and that her behavior should have her kicked out of the wedding. There's a lifetime of coddling to break, but she's going to have to learn at some point that this is what happens and that she can't always get her way. If she's worried about getting out of the wedding, maybe she'll start getting her act together. Maybe there's a whole family meeting that needs to be had with Laura's fiancé. Get everything on the table and get it sorted out. So, I have two elderly parents I don't talk to. They did not raise me. A lot of family drama, and I'm the youngest of 8 children, all of whom I don't talk to aside from my sister, who is closest to me in age. I have been an engineer for 20 plus years and have never really put down roots. I own a century home that I've been restoring the last 10 years, but it sits vacant for months at a time while I'm abroad. Last year, I took a job in Kuwait and won't be back until next year. The only ones allowed in the house are my son and my neighbor, both of whom watch over my house for me while I'm gone. I got a call 3 nights ago from my oldest sister, whom I've never met. She's going through a messy divorce and wants to move into my house until it's over, with 2 of her kids and her grandkid. I said no. She exploded on me, saying I've never tried to be a member of the family and suggesting I was the reason my parents split up. I probably am, but I really don't care. All of these people are foreign to me. The sister I do talk to won't talk to me, saying I was heartless, and I got angry phone calls from a lot of family saying much of the same. A lot of guys at work agreed that I should have opened my home to them. Fast forward to today. They had drove there and broken a window to gain entry to my home, and my neighbor called me informing me of the situation. I called the cops and told them I was out of the country and could not return, but would like them removed from the property, and she was arrested for trespassing. I told them I wasn't pressing charges, and I received more angry phone calls, saying I shouldn't have said no to begin with and should never have had her arrested. Apparently, most of my family and friends think I'm the a-hole. My neighbor is going to board the window, and he said there is a bunch of trash all over the place that I told him to leave. The thing is, she has a great job. She gets paid quite well, and she should have just paid for a hotel instead of invading my home. I don't really know. My family is my son and sister. Everyone else is just another person. Am I the a-hole? Holy crap. Unless you are terribly misrepresenting the facts, that's one of the clearest not the a-hole around. The title should have been, "A lady that I have never met but that happens to be related to me, broke into my house and I called the cops. Am I the a-hole?" Plus, even if you two were the closest of sisters, the way she behaved, cold calling you to ask to move into your house, breaking a window after being told no, is just awful and deserving of cutting her off. Edit to give some background. I was raised by my grandparents. I do not remember my parents when I was younger, and when they divorced when I was 2, my mom's parents took me in. Why? My sister assumes it was because my dad told my mom at one point, no more kids, and they had me. That is what my grandparents believed as well. But nobody has ever given me a real reason from the source, and it really isn't important for me to find out. I grew up 2 states away from the nearest relative, and I had a great childhood. My grandparents passed when I was 16. They were in their 90s, to give further context. And at the reading of my grandpa's will, they wanted me to finish high school and live with one of their friends, who agreed, and the court agreed too. During the reading, I met my mom, one of my brothers who was 18 years my senior, and my sister who was 4 years my senior. My sister and I talked quite a bit. She was in the Army, I was going into the Army, how we were similar, etc. She was great and always has been. She is stationed in Hawaii and is why she couldn't take the older sis in. Other than those 2 siblings, I have never met any of the others. They were cut out of my grandparents' lives, so there was never a contact with me either. My mother contested the will because she felt she was entitled to more, being their only daughter, and because the will had been rewritten just 3 years before my grandmother and eventually grandfather passed. The material objects I was given, i.e. family heirlooms, pictures, etc., were put into a storage locker and paid for until I was 18. I was cool with that. I didn't have room. While we were packaging up the estate, my mom asked me if she could take some of the photos as she didn't have many, and I agreed. I was a kid, and I was dumb. After a few hours, I noticed my sister, brother, mother were gone, and it was just me and my grandparents' friends. And I noticed a year later that a lot of things were missing. All of the photo albums, their wedding rings, which were in a scrapbook I couldn't locate, and other miscellaneous items. I didn't know who to blame, but I felt awful about it and suspected my mother. A year after I found out about the missing stuff, I was informed by probate that the executor of the will failed to pay the taxes on my grandparents' house, and it was lost to back taxes, which really upset me, and I blamed my mother because she was the one who contested it to begin with. So I went into the Army, At 19, I had my son and was married shortly after. We invited all of my family once more, but only my sister came. She was stationed in Germany at the time, so it was pretty great. She told me how she was getting married soon and showed me the ring, which was my grandmother's. I asked her about it, and she said our mother said it was a family heirloom. Sure, I could have made a scene, but we'd become close, and she was so happy, so I said nothing. I told her about the missing stuff last year, and she said it was probably just a mistake, and that she would ask about the rings. 6 years later, I divorced my wife amicably. There is a story with my ex-wife, but it really doesn't matter. I get along with her. She was a great mother to my son, and is still pretty special to me. My son and I talk every day. Ever since I discovered Skype, it has been our daily routine, now FaceTime. Not sure Skype still exists. And I have let him know about his extended family as much as I know. About 3 months ago, my sister told me my mother called me a liar, and that she didn't have any of her parents' things. I shrugged it off. I can't change it, just an important life lesson. And that's the contact I've had with my family. I've never reached out since I was married forever ago. I've never met my dad. All of my brothers and sisters have really great jobs, pharmacist, a doctor, couple of nurses, therapists, etc. But I really don't know them. But they are all self-sufficient from what I'm told.